Hey everybody, it's Gabby, and I am back with another episode of Gabby Reviews. And today I am starting on a new series. It is a series that is on Netflix, again, here I am with Netflix, called Instant Dream Home. And it's supposed to be a really crazy series of them doing an extreme makeover, but only within 12 hours. So today I'm going to review the very first episode. I just watched it last night, so we're going to talk about it. Um, I have a synopsis here. We're going to go through everything that went down in the episode, but this should be real interesting. Okay? All right, let's get started. Okay, so here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to format this a little bit differently than my last show review, which was made by design. Check out the rest of the channel to see all the episodes of that. But what I'm going to do today is focus on giving you my reaction. I have pre-watched this, so I've seen it. I know what's going on. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to give you my overall reaction. We're going to go through the show. I got some stuff written out here. We're going to read through it. I'm going to tell you all the little tidbits that I thought were interesting, funny, crazy, and then we're going to wrap it up at the end with some fun little facts. So, or I guess fun little opinions, not really facts. You tell me how it goes. So, let's get started. So, first things first, my initial reaction. This show is absolute insanity. And they did it for 8 episodes. What? You're talking. I, I mean, it sounds crazy and it sounds intense, but you have no idea how fast time goes when you are doing actual construction, when you are installing something, when you are doing demo, when you are doing the styling. That time goes by so quickly. It's not even funny. And to do everything, I'm talking about a full renovation in 8 hours, in 12 hours, without having been in the home before. All they have to go off of is whatever measurements or whatever stuff was sent to them, whatever pictures they had, whatever videos they had. They cannot physically be in the building. So I'm telling you, this is freaking insane. So to have pulled this all off and done it the way they did it, I'm just like, there was miracles, abounded by miracles in this entire thing. So let's talk about um, what's going on. Danielle Brooks, who I love. She has the sweetest spirit. If you don't know, Danielle Brooks played on Orange is the New Black, and I think she's in a play now. I think she's on Broadway now, doing something else. But I digress. So here's what we got. Before I get there, let's talk about who's on the cast. So you have this the mission. So this whole episode opens up with like an aerial view of the house, like, like we're in a Bond movie or we're like doing Mission Impossible, and they're like doing the thing. Yeah, so what's coming? And they do the sounds, the clicky clicky sounds, and their aerial views and the little hidden cameras in the trees. Just like it's ridiculous. I laughed a lot at some of the stuff that was going on in this episode. Episode was called "Baby on Board," and the mission is renovating the Budokan family's home. So it's a husband, a wife, and the wife's mother who recently had some health issues and she lost her sight. So um, having to renovate it to help her get around. But in addition to that, the wife is well, the husband and wife, but the wife is expecting, and she is pregos, like minimum 6 months pregos when this is going on. I'm thinking maybe 7, 8, but she up there. She's up there. So you got a pregos mama, and then losing eyesight mama. So that's challenging. And then they did the before the house, and it's stuff everywhere, which is typical. It's just stuff upon stuff upon stuff. And, they put off stuff at the house because of all the other things that's going on, work, um, extra help with the community that the mama does or did for years. So this is a crazy episode, but here we are. Here's the team. Here's who are the kind of leads going through it. Because there's a ton of people there. They have a ton of, I'm saying volunteers. Let's call them staff because I don't know if they're all volunteers. Some of them could be volunteers. Some of them could be paid. So let's just call them staff. So they have a whole slew of staff. But the leads of the staff are Danielle Brooks. She's named as the team leader. You got special projects, Paige Mobley. The carpenter, who is Eric Curtis. The exterior design done by Nick Katsumpas. If you know the correct pronunciation of that name, please correct me because I don't know it. And then, because in the episodes, they only say all their first names. They don't say their last names. And then interior design, someone I love, Adair Curtis. If you have not seen Adair before, watch Styling Hollywood on Netflix also. He's on there with his husband, Jason, for JSN Studio, and Jason is the stylist. And they both own JSN Studio together. I digress. We're moving on. So that is the team. So they lead all the projects. They're the point people, the managers, however you want to look at it. It's a little convoluted because everything's happening so quickly. Some of what you would typically see as far as like the different people being in charge of different things, that kind of takes a different tone to it. But man, oh man, it is something else. Now that I've gotten that done, let's get back to it. So we open up. Danielle introduces us to the boot camp. The family is preparing to leave under the impression that the porch is being redone. The accomplice is the husband Taylor, and he's surprising his expecting wife Ruth Beth and his mother-in-law Beth Ann, who has lost her eyesight due to health issues. So we talked about that. I just said that. So they're leaving. They pack up. They go. And then after they pack up, they go, everybody comes running down the street. It's like, go, 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 go. Because we're in Mission Impossible. And it kind of is like Mission Impossible in a way, because 12 hours, are you kidding? But the fact that they did it like that and the whole setup for the production is that just makes me giggle. And probably because I kind of like spy-ish movies. So it's almost like a riff to me. So it's comical. All right. The crew immediately gets to work and the rest of the team is introduced with their titles. Adair immediately is telling Paige to come on and get to work. So okay. So first off, when they go and Danielle's like, all right, come on, go, 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 go. You see people running, they ain't wasting no time. It's like normally there's like a moment where it's just like, okay, we're doing this and let's have a team meeting and we're gonna hit this, we're gonna hit this, and we're gonna hit this. And that's typical of other shows and how this kind of goes. And they ain't waste no time with that this time. The host who is the team lead on this show, Danielle, she did all the talking in the car while we were waiting for the other people while we were waiting for the family members to get out of the house. So because they're getting out of the house, all that introductory stuff is happening right there. As soon as they're out, they drive down the street, pull up, jump out, and start doing stuff. When I tell you the first scene after they run to the house is them cutting down branches, it's almost like they were sitting in the trucks. You know how in the movies where they got the military and the planes and they got all their stuff on, or they in the backs of the trucks with all the stuff on, they ready to go. SWAT is there, they decked out and they got their vests and their masks and they whatever makeup they gonna wear. They doing camouflage and they got the guns and the things and they fully done up. This is exactly how it seemed like they came out of the truck. Like they was like electric saws in there and paintbrushes in there and everybody just like go, 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 and they ran out the truck like and started cutting branches down. That's not what happened in the episode, but in my mind, that's exactly how it went down. it just it just pinpoints how insane this was. And then what also made me laugh was Paige, who is so cute, by the way. She's adorable. She's like, she picks up something. She's like, "Oh my God, look at this!" And Adair is like, "It's adorable. Pack a box." It's like, we don't have time for you to be playing around and looking at stuff and calling it cute. Get to work, please, and thank you. I was like, oh, I am going to enjoy this. If this is like this the entire time, this is going to be entertaining. So I loved it. I was ready for it. So let's go. Okay, so it cuts to the crew being at the warehouse. So the crew explains what's going to happen in a design meeting at a warehouse. That's where they all meet up prior to installation and go through the entire plan, what's going to get done, what's not going to get done. I am guessing that this happens a few days, a week prior to the actual installation. Because I feel like they had to do a whole bunch of things. So they probably did it a couple days before to get all their bearings and get everything prepared. But that's just a guess. Anyway, moving on. They're walking around like they're walking around like they're getting an on the spot briefing on a spy mission. They just like, this is what we're here for. This is what we're doing. Great. And Eric is like, okay, Nick, walk us through from the front to the back. Walk us through it. And they're facing. And then Darren's like, I'm sorry. It just doesn't stop being funny to me. And I'll probably get over it once I finish, after this episode. By the time I watch the next one, I should be over it. But I'm still not. It's still funny to me. Um, so Nick explains the garden plan around the house, including a sensory design focus for Mama, which is very important because it's a sensory design is a part of that health and wellness that we're all looking for in our homes. So keep an eye out for that because that's a very interesting detail. Paige adds a front door, a French door from the kitchen that with stairs that go down to a new garden and pergola for Mama. Mama is Beth Ann. So Adair is adding color, storage, and new furniture to the inside of the house, and he's also adding a baby room and redoing the kitchen completely. Eric proposes the prefab kitchen that will be forklifted in sections into place. This makes Nick real nervous. So part of the nervousness is because There's no guarantee that this is going to work. Eric says there's a 20% chance that the joist will not hold up to the new weight of the kitchen. And if that happens, that is a problem. There's also forklifting it in. If something happens, what do you do next? So there's that issue. On top of which, if they're not done in time because they only have 12 hours to do this, then Eric, who has to work on the back garden, Eric then has to sacrifice garden and outdoor space, which, calling him an exterior designer, I'm just like, why isn't he just called a landscape designer? I don't understand why it has to be exterior versus landscape, but that is me. And maybe it will show itself in future episodes why it's exterior versus landscape, but what I saw in this episode was landscape. So, anyway, moving on. Um, so that makes him nervous, and truth be told, it's a little. Everyone else is a little too, but Eric is very confident. So he's like, "We can do it. It's gonna get done. All the things." So cut back to the house. They're getting going. Danielle helps Nick chainsaw some branches. Eric and Nick check out the crawl space to see if the joists are good. Um, Paige, Paige is painting with a trim roller. So, so you see her using the trim roller on the wall, and Adair is checking in. He's like, "Paige, how's it going?" And she's like, "It'd be going a lot better if I had the proper tool." And she's like, and Adair's like, "Oh my God, look what you're using. I'm gonna find you a real roller." Because he's like, that's not going to do anything for anybody. But she's doing it because it's all she could get. And they're trying to get this thing done. So it's a ball of pressure the entire episode. That's why I'm just like in amazement that they did this for 8 of them. I just can't imagine how they did the rest of these homes, especially this one. And I didn't go into it, but I should. They're doing an old Victorian bungalow style house that was purchased back in the 1980s and hasn't been updated or upgraded since, which means that there's a lot that goes into that as far as contracting and construction is concerned. So, from what I could see, especially them going in the crawl space, the bones were good, so they didn't have to do any major construction, but it looked like they had to do some window replacements or some repairs on the roof. It looked like there were some repairs that had to be done to fix some things because those trees and bushes and branches were kind of overgrowing the house. And so it could have caused some damage up there. So power washing, I know, was a big thing that we didn't get to see. And I feel like they had to repair some things, at least on the exterior. But we didn't get to see some of that because there's a lot packed into this. And again, 12 hours. Insanity. And while all this is happening, the family is just hanging out on the back deck of a friend's place. They cut back. Nick and Eric start opening up the wall to the kitchen so they can begin this forklift kitchen install. Danielle comes back in. She's introducing us to the schedule, the big, the big, huge, giant, massive, monitored map schedule that shows everything when it has to be done, when it's time to be done, when it's time to end, when it's time to start, so that they can keep everything on track. And from what I can tell, Danielle is going through trying to make sure that everybody is on track with what they have to do. And so she's bouncing around. Since she's not as involved in all the stuff, she's bouncing around trying to make sure people are on it, checking in and all that kind of stuff. Danielle asked about the kitchen install. She's nervous. Um, they find out, and she's talking to Nick at this point. She finds out that the forklift test didn't go well. There's literally only a 2-inch clearance to get the kitchen in. Um, and they realize that the drop-in delivery has to be reinforced with steel in order to make sure it gets inside the kitchen. So let me explain this as best as possible because I'm a designer, I'm not a contractor, but to some extent I understand what's going on. So in order to get it in, and this part I understand, especially because the house is older, the joists are older. And so newer kitchens have a different weight to them, especially considering that most spaces have a stone countertop. That takes out a lot of time and intensity and all that kind of stuff. They have to get the kitchen in, understanding that the new weight of the kitchen has to not only hold up the pieces of the kitchen themselves, but also the framing that they're using to place the prefabbed pieces inside of the space. So this is a galley kitchen. They created two separate pieces. And in order to get it in, they have to put it on top of a stand and hold it together and then forklift it, slide it into the space, and then place it down so that it can then be, the framing can be taken off and then all the adjustments made to finalize getting the kitchen in. So it takes a reasonable amount of weight, especially considering that it's an older home, and it also takes a reasonable amount of precision to make sure it's done right. And so when he did the test, that puppy fell. And it fell because it was a wood frame, and the wood frame could not stand up to the size of that piece and sliding it into place properly. It broke. So they had to use steel to reinforce it, and the steel is heavier than the wood. And so that would add weight to the installation on the day of install. So when I tell you all of them were nervous, all of them were nervous. They were like visibly like shaking, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So it was a big deal, but it got in. They got the kitchen in. They got it in, and it was done, and it was successful. And it did not break. It did not fall. So yay to the kitchen going in successfully. Nick explains sensory garden plan with Danielle. I told you to pay attention to this part. This is important. And then they go into Beth Ann's health issues. So they talk about how she recently had, I think they said, I forget the first thing they said, but she definitely had a brain tumor, and it was the part of the combination of the things in the surgery for the brain tumor that had her lose her eyesight. So it definitely is a difficult thing, especially if she has to age in place, but not only age in place, she now has a disability and she needs immediate care. So making it so that the house was easier to maneuver in was extremely important because, again, she doesn't have the use of her eyesight. And so while they say once you lose a sense, the other ones, will make up for it and you have a better sense of them. As far as I understand, it's still a little bit more difficult for somebody who gets it later in life than it is for somebody who had it growing up, because their senses are still not as strong. Their other senses still aren't as strong to get around in. So making sure that they moved clutter out the way and made room for her was super important. Paige wants to do a prom pose under the garden arch. This is why I think Paige is so cute. She's just like, come on, let's do all the things. And Nick's like, we don't have time for this. And you'll see that, like they say that constantly. We don't have time. hurry up, we gotta go, we gotta go. And they do it to each other. They bounce off each other constantly. We see more of Beth Ann's story and more of Ruby's story as well. Beth Ann was in and helping her community, helping her daughter, and all that kind of stuff. So this is a big deal because she's given so much, and then her being able to receive something back would be um, amazing for them. Eric and Adair begin working on the crib. Adair says Eric can't watch his son. Okay, so they begin working on, I said crib, but they're working on the nursery. So they start to frame it out while they're there. Danielle is asking questions while they're there. Because she's like, oh my God, this is so cute. So they start doing this, and it cuts back to the warehouse where they tested out the size of the nursery so that they can make sure everything fit. So they're putting a dressing table, Adair's putting a dressing table in there, a bassinet, and they're trying to find other things to put up. Eric comes in and puts 2 shelves on the wall and goes, here, done, storage. And Adair's like, where's the shelving? The shelving is above the bassinet. He's like, you can't put a shelf above a baby. And this is the type of stuff. This is why interior design is so important. Adair's reaction to Eric is like the quintessential relationship between interior design and contracting on a lot of jobs. You, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And legally, code-wise, you can't have shelving above a baby. But, carpenters, those guys don't typically think about that stuff because their stuff is thinking about the building. They're thinking about the building and, is there enough weight to hold this kitchen? They're thinking about that kind of stuff. And they're thinking about the construction of things. They're not thinking about the people necessarily that have to live in it. And so they often forget about the small details that are really important that make sense. So Adair catching this and going, dude, and having the reaction that he has, that 100% is exactly how it's supposed to be. You cannot do that. Eric hurries Danielle and Adair along so they can get this finished. And then as that goes, the rain begins. Dun, dun, dun. Paige and Nick are outside with the rest of the team, and they're working through the wet to build the pergola. Bedrooms, living room, and dining room were ahead of schedule, but the kitchen was still behind. They still hadn't finished it, and this was at 4.5 hours in. 4.5 hours left. The kitchen still wasn't finished, meaning they hadn't placed everything, installed all the fixtures, made sure all the finalized pieces were in there. It was running behind schedule. Danielle pushes time for Adair to get his stuff done. Paige falls trying to plant something in the garden. Adair goes to Eric and says, hey, I need help in the kitchen. They're still in here. They're still not out. They got to get this done so I can finish this. So that's another thing. Again, they're all checking each other. Hey, we got to get this done. It's time is a flying. All right. Danielle checks out the garden. She's seeing all the things. She thinks it's beautiful. She wants to eat the basil, which I'm not mad at her because I would too. It's fresh herbs smell amazing. They really do. It changes the atmosphere, and just the smell of them just centers you in a certain way. And scent is connected to memory, and so you're able to remember things differently because of the scent. Paige pushes work for Danielle and Nick because they're out there eating basil. And here we go. All right, again, Adair is pushing time for the nursery because the nursery still isn't done. He has to get in there and finish it up. So here we go. At 6:26 p.m. So the 12 hours that they were working within was 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. At 6:26, Taylor calls Danielle. Ruby Beth and Mama Beth Ann, they want to go home. Daniel's like, you can't hold him no longer? He's like, I can't hold him no longer. She said, okay. And she goes, the family is coming now. And they're all like, no. No. So they're mad dash rushing trying to get it done. 6:39, the family's leaving the house. The finishes go in, and by 7, they're done. The family is coming. Danielle sees them. She's excited. So here we go. Ruby Beth is in shock because she realizes who's standing in the middle of the street, pulling her down. Um, and Danielle gets the family out, and they all start talking about what's going on. They tell Beth Ann what's happening. The time board is still visible behind the family. I thought that was funny. It's like they didn't have that at all. And they probably couldn't because the street wasn't really big. So they start going through the design. And the first thing they do is, hey, look at the outside. Um, and Ruby Beth has to tell her mother everything that she sees. So because Beth Ann doesn't have her vision anymore. She can see light. She can perceive light, but she can't see. So Ruby Beth is making sure she explains everything that she's looking at to her mother. So they start with the outside of the house, and then they go to the outside porch in the front, the updated wicker furniture. Taylor and Ruby Beth go inside to see the house, while Danielle stays out on the porch with Beth Ann, to give Taylor and Ruby a chance to kind of look at their space and see their part of it. And this is when I started crying. I'm not even going to pretend like I was doing something else. I'm talking about the waterworks were coming, sweating, all of it. I said, this, it's beautiful. All the things. So I'm glad I watched it first, because if I hadn't watched it first, y'all was going to see all of me. All of it. So, okay. The navy color on the walls looks great. Um, the bedroom is nice and moody and a beautiful green. Love the wood bed frame that they put on the bed. This is for Taylor and Ruby Beth's room. Then they see the nursery again with the eyes, again with the sweating. Just just continued. Danielle starts to prep Mama to experience her space. Um, and so Taylor and Ruby Beth come out to help Beth Ann in. And before they go inside, Beth Ann asks for a moment of silence just to recognize where they are, which I thought was beautiful. Like, to stand in appreciation of not only what someone has given you, but of the newness and of the change and of the refresh that you're about to experience. It takes it gives you time to appreciate the moment more. And so I love that about what they did. Um, so here we go. Beth Ann can feel the freshness of the house, and Ruby Beth explains the openness of Beth Ann's bedroom. The family views the living room and kitchen. Beth Ann is overwhelmed by the French doors and new garden. Um, Mama immediately recognized the smells of the herbs and the plants outside. Um, Danielle explains to her that this is her moment to receive back all that Beth Ann has given, and so it continues on with the beautifulness of giving this to someone who really, not that other people don't deserve it, but someone who really deserves it and appreciates what they are receiving. It was such a beautiful moment. Um, the team comes and meets the family and greets the family, and Paige greets Mama, um, and she bends down to her to talk directly to her. And I thought that was a sweet moment. And Danielle gives Mama a final hug as the team leaves. So that's the episode. And as crazy and to me comical as some of this is, it still is beautiful, and it's the kind of thing, it's why I got into design in the first place. Because having a space that not only looks great, but a space that speaks to you does amazing things for people. it changes how you experience life, how you experience joy, the type of joy and calm and energy that you want, that you allow yourself to let into you. So it is just beautiful that this family got something like this. So I really love that portion of it. So here's something that I want to bring to the forefront to you. So I want to make sure that we recognize that what is happening is not normal. I, if you're getting renovations done on your home, do not be surprised if you only have 1 to 2 guys on site in a day. The massive amount of people, the massive amount of time and moving and equipment and all that kind of stuff, that is abnormal. You're not going to see that everywhere. So adjust the expectations when you're doing it for yourself, because this insanity. Okay, that was my first thing. Second thing, sensory design is a real thing, and it's a way to design to connect to health and wellness. And it's something that I actually am incorporating into my own business practice because I am a wellness focused designer. So I don't, if I can't include wellness, then that's what happens. Every client is different. But I will focus on the wellness and I will focus on your wholeness um, as a designer. And the thing about sensory design is it addresses things that really make you not just live in a space, but attached to a space. Like you're not, it's like fashion. Instead of the outfit wearing you, you wear the outfit. So it's the same. Instead of the house living you, you live the house. So it changes the perspective, which is really important for your mental health and for your physical health. So we have to keep a mind of that. And here's something I really liked. Reintroducing the color back into the design, I think was a genius moment. And it was another way that the team connected back to the family. So the before picture of the house, it was covered with the trees and the branches and the plants and all that kind of stuff, but it had color and it was this beautiful blue on the outside. And it told me that even with the plants around, it told me that they had a level of life and color that they like to enjoy as far as life was concerned. And what tends to happen is with contemporary design, we don't consider that, and we end up removing all the color and then putting little pieces here and there for the sake of a specific look or a specific style. And I don't love that. So when they decided to reincorporate the color, because on the outside I thought they were getting rid of it. It looked like they were just gonna beige it up, and I was like, oh, I don't know about this. But then they put that light mint green on the outside. I said, oh yes. And then going inside went with the dare, adding the color back in and that dark, putting the dark navy right in the front, so that even though it's not on the outside, they don't miss it. I said, okay, like this is beautiful. And the way they did it and worked it through, I thought was gorgeous. So big ups to Adair for that one. And Nick, I believe, because Nick is the exterior designer. So I believe if we're considering exterior design, if he was in charge of the exterior as a whole, and that was Nick's idea to keep the color, then I love that too. Lastly, here's something I'm going to do with this because I think it's important. We need an MVP for this show because I'm like, I don't know how they did it. So, my MVP for this episode is Eric and the guy operating the forklift. Because the entire time, Eric was telling the truth. He was being completely honest, but he was absolutely confident that he was going to get this kitchen in. And everybody was nervous as hell. And him and the guy operating the forklift. I know that the team was around and they were helping and all that kind of stuff, but that is not easy. And he had to be careful and he had to trust all the people telling him what to do. So him getting back in there, I'm like, yes, yes. So I love it. Adair takes a close second because he was just funny through the episode. He was just funny. He's like, Paige, Eric, I need my nursery. He was funny. So that is it for today's episode. Please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. More is coming, more is on the way, but I'm really excited about the rest of the season. There are 8 episodes in total, so we got 7 more. So let's do the thing. Let's make this happen. Let me know if you agree on my MVP or if you would have picked somebody else. All right. Until next time. Bye.